Okay, I've been bubbling, so.
If you make a categorical statement that
Yeah.
black men
As a whole.
oppress, it's just like saying Muslims are terrorists
Yeah.
just because an individual commits a crime.
Welcome to Bridge the Gap, a show where we aim to build a bridge of understanding between opposing views. Each episode, you'll see our participants sit down to discuss some thought-provoking statements.
The phrase, black men oppress black women, is unfair.
If they disagree with the statement, they'll leave their seat and allow those that agree to explain themselves.
I don't understand how black men as a whole can have that sort of power when we don't have that sort of power in society at all.
Those that disagree then return and express themselves to the rest of the group.
But for me, the statement, black men oppress black women, is an attack on black men. It's an attack on patriarchy and sexism within the diaspora.
Hopefully building a bridge of understanding. Let's see what happens.
The phrase, black men oppress black women, is unfair.
So if you don't agree with it, I agree.
So if you disagree with the statement, please enter the side.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think it's an unfair statement to say black men in their entirety oppress
Yeah.
women.
I think it'll be quite inaccurate if you make a categorical statement that
Yeah.
black men
As a whole.
oppress. It's just like saying Muslims are terrorists
Yeah.
just because an individual commits a crime. But then if you look within the group, you will see individuals who have oppressed black women, right? So you see black men who've done harmful things to black women, like rape, domestic violence, and all those kind of things. So then you want to have a conversation on that because that's not a good thing at the same time,
Yeah.
right? But I think it is unfair to say like make a categorical statement. At the same time, I think it's important for us to actually speak on the cases where black men oppress black women,
Yeah.
so that we can change those things for the
I
betterment
don't
of our
think
community.
it's a fair stigma for black men who don't oppress women.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I feel like it
oppress
can't
is
be a
strong.
blanket statement. There's point in
I don't think blanket statements are helpful,
It
man.
makes no sense.
I don't
I think
blanket
we can
statements are
highlight
helpful.
that there are like oppressive tendencies or oppressive natures of certain individuals, but you can't say it as a collective. And like oppressed to me, like that word is so strong. And like I think when I think of oppressed, I think of like power, and I think of control, and I think of indoctrination. I think of so many different things that are so negative and so powerful, and I don't understand how the whole of how black men as a whole can have that sort of power when we don't have that sort of power in society at all, and we all know that. So I think there's levels to it, as we all know, like the black woman, the black man, the white woman.
I feel like you're loading.
Nah, not even like that. I wanted her to finish though, but I
No,
thought,
I'm more or less.
just to kind of piggyback of what you're saying, I feel like we live in a patriarchal society, innit? So men in general are always going to have this kind of like power over women. I don't think you can restrict it to a narrative around black men because, like you're saying, we don't have that same power societally. You get what I'm saying? So meaning that if you were going to say men across the board, then we can have a more like
Men versus women in
diverse.
general.
Yeah, do you get what I'm saying? But when it comes to black men, I feel like it's a narrative that's been
Pushed.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not true in some instances.
Some
but
instances it is
that
true.
specific narrative.
So does that mean you think it's kind of been exaggerated then?
The statement.
I wouldn't even
I don't think it's
say
been
if it's
exaggerated.
exaggerated or not. It's just a very bad way to approach a situation if you want to solve it, you know, because it rubs off badly. You know, like it's more of, it's like warfare, you know, it's like a fight rather than coming to the table and saying, okay, we have these problems in our society, let's discuss them. You're simply labeling the side. That's the easiest way to just turn people off to the conversation period. You know, so
And also you need to think we're black, so it pertains to us more as it adheres to like black men or women. But I remember I was reading the comments underneath a YouTube video, and this woman was talking about like colorism and like how, you know, like colorism in the black community, and an Asian woman comment underneath, and she was like, yeah, like in the Asian community, I can't remember the specific tribes, I can't remember the specific area, but it was like, yeah, if you're more dark skinned, you're less favoured here, you're not, you know what I'm saying? So in their community, the argument articulates itself differently, you know what I'm saying? So I feel it's not exaggerated, but it's more relevant to us to discuss it in that context.
Overall, if you're going to say black men oppress black women, it's definitely unfair because you can't apply one statement to everybody because you don't know everybody and people are different. So
It just can't be universalized.
it can't be universalized. So if it's that statement going as a blank statement, it is unfair and it doesn't really apply.
It's even making me a bit upset. I'm not gonna lie, because I feel like sometimes black men are demonized, and that's not the case. My dad's a lovely man. He doesn't oppress me.
As is
So I'm
mine.
just like, so, you know, I don't want that for my dad.
The word oppressed doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah,
I'll be
the
honest.
oppressor.
It
There's a
doesn't- you can say
system
other
of
things,
black
but
men
not
controlling
Yeah.
black women.
Yeah.
There are individuals who are oppressive,
Yes,
just like in every
of
group, there are
course.
individuals who would always act inappropriately.
Yes.
But the statement isn't accurate. But you
Yes.
can understand where the statement's
Where it
coming
comes from. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
For me, I think when I hear the word oppressed, I can't even relate that. And this may be maybe not the right thing to say, I'm not sure, but I can't relate that to black people. Like, I just don't see black people as
The oppressor.
the oppressor or
Also the
or
oppressed.
oppressive people, etc. I think like this is, if anything, it's like almost learned behavior due to like trauma and etc. over the years, history, you can go into it, but I just don't put black people and oppressed.
Do you know
it
what?
doesn't connect for me.
I get that for sure, but I think if it's black, if we're just sticking to black people, if I'm to choose a gender, I think.
Who's more
Do you
oppressive?
know what I'm saying here? So let me just stay here. I'm not trying
No,
to.
continue.
I just because I get
Speak your mind.
I get what you mean in that the term oppressor for me, I'm not thinking of a black person.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
what I'm
it's so
trying to
far
say.
removed from me.
Yeah.
But if I'm thinking of purely black people, and there's one to oppress the other, I would usually say the man oppressing the woman. But then again, you know, my opinion still stands that we cannot make such a statement about all black men. I think it's very, very unfair. Okay, I've been bubbling, so. Right, so we all agree that patriarchy exists, right? And the statement didn't say only black men oppress black women. It wasn't, like multiple things can exist at once. Black men can oppress black women. White men can oppress black women. Like it didn't say that's the only demographic within which it happened. And I feel like people hear statements like that and they can get a bit defensive. And so it turns into, you perceive it differently. So, you know, it's not fair to say that, you know, it's black men, it's not fair to say that that's not what the statement said. And also, we talk about things and we try to individualize things. And when it comes to systems, you can't really do that because patriarchy has existed for how many centuries? Do you know what I mean? And then when it comes to feminism, you've got feminism, and what feminism looks like a white woman is going to be different to what feminism looks like a black woman, right? And so when you try and individualize these things, it makes it seem like it's on each individual to deal with their issues on a case-by-case basis. And if it is an individual problem, then that means if we unify, that's not going to make any difference because it's not a group problem. It's not a problem that exists within a group and pertains to a particular group. It's about your personal experiences and your personal experiences. But we can't fight this together if there's no commonality between what we refer to as oppressed. And I know when we think of oppressed, we immediately think of racism, right? Because it's one of the biggest atrocities and probably the way in which most people are most severely oppressed in life. But oppression exists in all sorts of forms, and sexism and patriarchy is one of those things, you know, where it is legitimately oppression. And you know what you were saying about there are individuals, and you know, it's about the individual circumstance, but there's loads of men that aren't like that. I just feel like when it comes to oppression and patriarchy and sexism, again, the onus is then put on the individual. And I feel like a lot of men, when they talk about, especially black men as well, and don't get me wrong, I definitely believe that there is a negative narrative that is moving to the forefront, and I do feel it's becoming toxic between black men and black women, and I 100% acknowledge that. But I also feel like when you say, you know, oh, there's people within the group and within the thing, what that means is, I feel like a lot of men essentially are saying they want to prioritize their right to be seen as a good one and to be seen as decent and to be seen as different. They want to prioritize their right to be represented in a positive light over what they need to do as black men collectively It's about to support. black women. And I'm not saying you need to bear the brunt of other people's poor decisions and of other people's horrible attitudes. That's not what the argument is. But when we talk about black men oppressing black women, in that moment, the priority is not you asserting yourself as the good guy. If you are a good guy, we will know that you're a good guy. Like, it's not something that needs to be said explicitly. And I just feel like when we do that, it's like when white people come and be like, oh, but I'm not racist. Grand. But there's not enough people that aren't racist. As, like, the fact that you're not racist is inconsequential, because there's not enough of you that aren't racist. That means, as a black person, I'm not suffering. You're not racist, but black people are still suffering. So clearly that's not enough. So just because this guy's good, and that guy's good, and that guy's good, accumulatively, it's not enough to stop the overwhelming oppression of black women by black men. And personally, I don't date black men. I mean, I don't date white men. I'm not attracted to white men. So they're not my business. I don't care what white men are doing. And I don't care if white men are oppressing white women. That's not my business. That's for them to figure out. But for me, the statement, black men oppress black women, is an attack on black men. It's an attack on patriarchy and sexism within the diaspora. That's what I think of when I hear it.
So do you feel like all of these types of issues need to be targeted as a collective for it to actually work? You feel like basically us saying that there's individuals, etc., you can't use it as a blanket statement, is us removing the responsibility? Is that what you're trying to say? It has to always be targeted as a collective?
Not every issue. That's not what I mean.
But do you feel like this issue is big enough? 100%
big
enough. Black men oppressing black women is big enough for it to be a collective issue.
Is it big enough? Because
That's what I don't
you
think
compare
it
it with the
is.
system of
The racism example was
right?
more
Because
effective.
that's what you use to legitimize your argument, that black men oppress black women. You have a system in which black men oppress black women. That is the dynamic of the relationship between black men and black women.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say it is big enough? Like, what are you using? What are the distinctions between when is it big enough or when is it not big enough to use the collective?
When enough
like what I
people-
said, the initial point about, we wouldn't say Muslims are terrorists, right? Because of an individual case of a terrorist incident where that happens to be Muslim, right? That might be an extreme case, but I'm using that. And you would agree with me that we wouldn't collectivize it in that case.
I think in order for us to collectivize it and realize that the issue here at hand is when it comes to the men and understanding the severity of the situation, when our women are speaking, take accountability and just listen. So from time we've taken accountability on our end and looked at the bigger scale of the actual problem here at hand, the women are saying this is what they're seeing, this is what's going on. The brothers then have to sit down together, right? As you just said, you already know if someone's a good person or not, so you don't really need to say it. So if you sit down and listen into a conversation and hear what somebody's saying, you know what, sister, I hear you. I hear your cries, I hear your pain. So if I'm saying I hear you and hear your pain now, I then speak to a guy who doesn't view it as me, so he understands where they're coming from. So it now comes a situation where in order for us to come together, the men have to start having the conversations amongst themselves. We have to start pulling people up and having a conversation in a way where people understand it on a wider scale. Because there's young men that are growing up and seeing these things go on, but they don't understand it. So in order for us to move forward as a collective now, once we understand it and understand it on a wider scale, especially in men's perspective, we can then come together and then realize it's a bigger problem and hear what they're saying, hear the conversations that's being had. For me, the thing as well is that why this kind of gets a bit touchy sometimes is because the people that are pushing these narratives aren't the people that are credible people that I want to listen to. The women that are just spoken, you guys are just spoken just now and just reiterated the conversation in such a beautiful way. I get it, I understand, I hear you. So now I can say to my guys that's just over there, this is what they're saying. I get it, because you lot have come across in a way I can understand that. So when you're seeing these narratives being pushed, you got to look at who's pushing the conversation and who's having the conversation and who the audience is. And that's for me, that's how they rate it.
Do you think, do you think though that is the correct launching point for that conversation? Because I feel like that statement in itself, I think it's specific. Like, I think you made a good point talking about the diaspora and talking about people in Western, black people as relate to each other in the Western society. Because originally I'm from Ghana, innit? Do you get what I'm saying? And if you look at African culture, prior to colonization, it was like more matriarchal than anything. Do you get what I'm saying? Like Yaa Santua is one of the biggest like figures in Ghanaian history. Do you know what I mean? And that's a woman. So I feel like I think the conversation about listening, all them things is important, isn't it? But I feel like launching it from that standpoint, not only does it become like my guy was saying, it becomes defensive, but at the same time as well, does it make the resolution more destructive?
Do you think it's not a productive springboard, I guess, being
that's what I feel like. I feel like it's a bit mad to say it like that.
Yeah, no, the thing is, this is the thing, when with statements like that, it's going to evoke emotion. 100%. Do you know what I mean? So when you hear it, you're going to have a reaction. Do you know what I mean? And we're all going to react differently. And I feel like part of the reason why I react differently is maybe because of the amount I've considered it. Maybe it's because of the people that I have around me, the conversations that I've already had. Do you know what I mean? I can't speak to your experiences like that existed before this conversation. And it, just to answer your question about what legitimizes it, it's about the number and the size. Do you know what I mean? Enough black women have expressed how they feel, and as such, that is reason enough. Like, we know that these things, we know that racism exists because of this. It didn't happen in this obscure corner of the world. You know what I mean? I keep comparing it to racism just because of oppression. I feel like that's something that most people would understand, and they would never try to dispute whether or not that's oppression. So that's why I'm using that. And also, they're intrinsically linked. The oppression of black women is intrinsically linked to the oppression of black people. Like, you can't. It's almost like that has been extrapolated from that issue entirely.
Absolutely.
And these things are complicated because it's an accumulation and a culmination of so many things. And I feel like it's the conversation that will never end. Like, we'll always be having it, and there will always be differences of opinion.